The UK government need massive reform across the board. You and I know this. When it comes to finances, specifically the economy and public spending, our taxpayers' money, what is being spent on what projects, there surely needs to be some basic control measures. Now, I don't know whether these basic control measures are in place, but for example, do you know when you're at home and you're thinking about making a purchase of some kind? Maybe it is you're going to go to the supermarket to do your groceries, or you might go and invest in a brand new sofa, or you might invest in a new car. There's different control measures that we have in our personal lives. If you are going to go to the groceries and you're going to go to the supermarket and do a shop, it might cost you 40, 50, 60 pounds, right? The chances are you're not having a big conversation about this. But if you're going to invest in a sofa, or let's say a brand new car, you start to have different control measures in place. For example, you may want to get together and speak to your wife, your husband, and you say, we're going to invest this £1,500 in this brand new sofa. Or we're looking at buying a holiday this summer. What's our budget? And we're going to spend £800 per person. And you end up having a control measure where somebody doesn't just go out and just, you don't just come home one day and your other half has just purchase the sofa. Like, usually you have some control measures. You don't just walk back into your drive and you see a brand new car. Like, when did that happen, right? The same actually happens in a business. So in our business, we have our leadership team. Now, our leadership team have the ability to spend money, but then we've got specific control measures depending on what the investment is going to be. So for example, if one of our operational managers needs to reorder some material, right, that doesn't need to be approved. That doesn't need to be have a conversation of. They will just simply place an order for some brand new boxes, right? £500, £600. But then there are specific price thresholds that, depending on what that level of spending is, that will determine whether it's a conversation or not. So for example, if we're going to do a significant investment in, let's say, some material in the warehouse that's now going to cost £15,000, then that needs to have a conversation, that needs to go correctly budgeted and quoted and get the best price, the best value for money, etc. Think about it from a government point of view. There are different projects that we hear that the government have just decided to do, right? And some of these numbers are staggering. Some of these numbers could be a project that's going to, the government have decided to spend 50 million on this initiative. They're about to spend £2 billion on this brand new initiative. Or they're about to, over the next 50 years, invest into this particular agreement that's now going to cost the UK taxpayer 60 billion over the next 40 years. Surely there has to be some basic control measures that you and I would naturally do in our personal lives. And for those that are in private companies, I'm sure that you do that too, right? You've got specific thresholds where if it's below a threshold, then you don't need approval for that. We know that that's an essential requirement and you can just go do this, whether it is picking up the milk at the groceries from a personal point of view, or whether it is ordering some replenishment of supplies that doesn't cost, in the grand scheme of things, that expensive. But when it comes to severe and big investments, usually you have some control measure in place where the specific measures that allows you to ensure, is it value for money? Can we afford this? Is it the best price? These are just kind of basic control measures And I would love to know what thresholds there is. Now, from a reform perspective, here's what I would propose. And I'm not a politician. I'm just somebody who's on YouTube speaking to you, and we're very passionate about the UK and the success of the UK, right? So we can have these conversations. But to me, I would say to the British public, I would say and propose a control measure plan. So essentially what I would do is, if I knew how big the finances and everything are, I would come up with specific kind of thresholds. So for example, this is going to sound ridiculous in terms of numbers, but for example, if the government are going to do an investment of £200,000, then you probably don't need to bring that to the public and be like, we're going to spend £200,000, although that sounds ridiculous because it's a lot of money. But if we're now talking, let's say, £1 million, £50 million, £1 billion, £10 billion, surely there has to be a control measure where if any investment over £50 million, we now have a vote, and everybody gets all the information, what the investment is, what it's going to achieve, what the return on investment is, the proof of different quotes that we've had. Is it the best company? Is it the best value for money? Is it a project that we actually want to do? And therefore, you vote and the majority wins. Now, I don't know what that threshold is. I have no idea what that threshold is without being able to get into the details of everything. But surely there needs to be some type of reform in how public money is spent, because you would do this in your personal life. You would get you would get your wife, your husband involved, and you would say, okay, are we going to invest? Are we going to buy this new house or this new car? Or, you've got some major investments that you do in your life that is a conversation and then an agreement. Or in your private business, you would go, if there's a threshold above £5,000, that now needs to have a second person being involved in a communication. Surely these basic accounting, finance control measures need to apply in the public realm. Now, you may, please comment down below if you know if these are in place, but we see time and time again billions and billions and billions of pounds being spent, and you and I were not involved in making that decision at all. Now, maybe it logistically will not actually make sense, but I'm just putting a potential reform out in the universe that surely, to me, that does make sense. So how would it work? We predefine what the thresholds are. Let's say it was 1 billion, which is a ridiculous amounts of money, but let's say it was 1 billion. If there's an investment above 1 billion, then everybody in the UK, you've got this particular website, you've got this particular, all your information, what it is, what, why, how, timeline, project, the benefits that's going to be involved, the pros, the cons. Vote on this particular time. If you choose not to vote, then so be it, and then the majority wins. And if in the result, let's say the big majority says, it's not something that we want to do, then it simply does not go ahead because the people have voted for it. Now, there's obviously, I think there's probably going to be more complicated things than that makes this unfeasible. At the end of the day, there's going to be some specialties. How can me and you vote on something maybe we don't fully understand? There's lots of things, but there needs to be some form of public weighting factor on whether that goes ahead. So if in the event the public say no, and then the government still, they still push that, then there needs to be some type of overarching escalation I don't know how that looks. I've no idea. But then somebody essentially then goes, the public has said no, so we're not going to say no. Or the public may have said no, but in this particular case, we've had to override it because of this. And maybe something like that would work. Or not. Comment down below, let me know. Please give it a big thumbs up if you agree, or thumbs down if you disagree. Did you know that less than 5% of viewers are subscribed to this YouTube channel? If you've got to this point, I appreciate you. We're here to talk politics, UK, success in our towns, villages, cities of this great country. Speak soon.